Hey y'all, welcome to the Figuring It Out With You podcast with your favorite mother-daughter duo, where we're in an ever-growing conversation with each other and you all, just trying to figure out how to make the most of the life we've all been given.
I'm Kim.
And I'm Kay.
And let's get this conversation started for today. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us as we continue to figure it out with you. In this episode of Figuring It Out With You, we will be discussing some very sensitive topics. We're still celebrating Women's History Month. Today we will be speaking to two very special women that are working to overcome a very specific type of adversity. Today's conversation will include some very emotional content, as we will be speaking to a young lady and her mom about some very personal experiences. We hope that this episode will give you the courage to tell your story, even if it is not on a platform such as this, but just get it out so that you can begin the healing process. Trigger warning: the following video or interview may contain content that may be triggering or traumatizing to some individuals. Recent statistics show that 30 to 40% of victims are abused by a family member. 50% are abused by someone outside of the family whom they know and trust. Again, today we will be speaking about sexual molestation. This subject is very familiar to me, as I was a victim of sexual molestation by several people at a very young age. I will share some of my experiences, and we will hear from these courageous women to get their individual perspectives on this very personal subject. So today I'm joined, to my right is my friend Sherlonda. We've been best friends for a very long time. We met in high school, ninth grade. And I told a story in one of the previous episodes. We were supposed to be fighting. You remember? We were supposed to be fighting. Tamika and another friend of mine was supposed to be fighting. Tamika's her sister. And we met and became best friends. So this life is crazy. And to my left is her daughter, Tayanna. And so, again, we're just going to speak today about being molested. And I'll go first. I'll share my story. I was molested around the age 4 or 5. My grandmother kept foster home boys, and they taught me that these men were my uncles. And I remember one of them put me up on the top bunk bed and pulled my underwear down and performed oral sex on me around 4 or 5 years old. And at that time, I really didn't know what was happening. But just that exposure to that sexual act kind of like opened me up to just have a whole whirlwind of feelings and emotions and things that I should have never been feeling at that age. So again, today, these are very personal questions. If there's anything that you guys don't want to answer, you don't have to. But I'm going to start with Tayanna. Can you tell us briefly about yourself and tell us what happened?
Yeah. So my name is Tayanna. I am 26 years old. I'm the oldest of 4 younger siblings, 2 younger sisters and 2 younger brothers, and they are my world. I look after them. They're like my kiddos. They mean everything to me. So my life, everything that I do in my life is devoted to the ones that I love. And this situation that occurred when I was younger was very tough. And it took a lot of healing and a lot of traumatic events to lead me to where I am today. It started off when I was around 14, 15, 16, around those numbers there. And it happened from my father. It was a situation where, I when I was younger, I looked up to my father. To me, he was a hero at a young age, but now looking back on it, that was not the case. He provided a lot in our family. He was always the sole provider of our family. You know, he made sure that we ate, we had clothes on our back. So as a young child, all of those things I was very grateful for. So when he came into our lives, we were very happy because he was very in and out of our lives. So up until that point, around 15, 16, I had a decent relationship with my father. It was rocky because he was very controlling, but overall, I had a decent relationship with him. And then a night came. He came in my room late night, right before he was supposed to go off to work, and he touched me in places he'd never touched me before. I believe he was touching me around my butt. He was rubbing my butt a little bit more than anyone should be rubbing your butt. And I remember being shocked in that moment, not knowing what to do, and I was just completely frozen. And I remember that night, I couldn't sleep. Like I just was processing what was happening. I was like, was that a mistake? Like, what is going on? Why now? What is happening? I was trying to psych myself out of the reality of what was happening. And so I just thought, okay, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe he didn't really mean to do that. And then, the next morning he came in, it was fine. And I just like, okay, maybe it was a mistake. And then the following night, he went off to work and he did it again. It's like, well, that's not a mistake. That seems very purposeful. So that's how it started. And then from there, it got really worse.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know this is difficult. And again, thank you for being so courageous to share your story, because molestation is very prominent across the board. African American, Caucasian, all nationalities. And as a child or a younger person, we do kind of psych ourselves out. Like, maybe I was dreaming, maybe it didn't happen, maybe it did happen, maybe it was a mistake. But I teach my children there's no gray area when it comes to being touched inappropriately. And I remember when I have two granddaughters, and their mom, she used to say, oh, that's their pocketbook. No, that's their vagina, and no one touches it except you. You have to establish those ground rules early, because there are so many sexual predators in various places, like people that you would never imagine. How long did the abuse take place?
So it lasted up until I was 18, turning 19. No, I was turning 19 years old. So it happened up until 19. I was about to turn 19. And as soon as I turned 19, I left home immediately. So that it was about 3 years of continuous abuse from my father.
And do you think that if you had not left home, it would have continued?
Absolutely. It definitely would have continued. He wanted to control me as much time as he could have. He wanted me to stay home as much as he wanted me to. I graduated high school. I had dreams of going to university. I had dreams of moving away and going to college, but he quickly reminded me that I won't be doing that. I will be staying home and I will be going to college from home. And all those dreams that I had were shattered for me. So as soon as I turned 19, I left home. And then from there, it was just kind of zoning in and forgetting about whatever happened to me. And just continuously living, but not really living.
I definitely understand that. A lot of times we go through the motions, and you can't really zone out. But that's not a good quality of life. Were you afraid to tell anyone, or did you tell anyone?
So I did tell during the time, my best friend. So my best friend at the time knew. I was afraid to tell my mother or anyone that was close to me, really. And I was scared for, my father really instilled at that time in my teenage years that what he has done for us would never be done by anyone else. And he was giving us something that could never be obtained by anybody else in this world. And if he were to leave, then we wouldn't have the things that we need, like food, clothes, things that teenagers want. He made it very clear that if I were to tell anybody that, basically that we would be poor, basically. And he would tell us things like, oh, if we weren't here, we would be in the hood, or we wouldn't have the things that we had if it wasn't for him. And being the oldest, and it's unfortunate, but I stayed so quiet for the longest because I wanted my siblings to have everything they wanted. And if that means that I suffer in silence, then I will suffer in silence. I just cared so much about their life because I am the oldest and I had the experiences of what it was like to live very poorly, to go without food, to go without lights, to not have the things that you wanted, to have clothes that had no new clothes. It was something that I experienced that I never want them to experience. So if that meant I don't tell anyone, then I won't tell anyone.
So basically, he manipulated you and controlled you by possessions and material things.
Right.
Yeah, that's very common for abusers to kind of remind you of how great your life is with them and how pitiful you would be without them. And I'm the oldest of my siblings. And as the oldest, we tend to take on more responsibility than we should. So I definitely can relate to you and just trying to look out for your siblings.
And unfortunately, I still do that today.
Yeah. Do you think, what steps have you taken to heal and pick up the pieces to move on with your life?
It took a lot because a lot of it was suppressing. And then it got to a point like I went years with all those feelings just being pushed down. Like work, schooling was my only driving force of suppressing those feelings. And then one day, all those feelings came up and it was like an explosion of anxiety, depression, negative thoughts, suicidal thoughts. I mean, everything that I had suppressed for all those years just exploded. And I was dealing with anxiety every single day. I couldn't work. I couldn't function. I couldn't play. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do the things that I enjoyed because all of it was anxiety inducing. And that day was the day I found out that my sister was also getting molested by my father when I left home. So it was a mixture of guilt of not coming forward and telling people what happened to me when maybe it would have happened to my younger sister. So that day, all those feelings exploded. And it was one of the hardest things that I ever had to deal with. It was like the worst day. It was my worst day. And I knew in that moment that I needed help. And I needed to help her. So I started to go to therapy. And I talked about my experience with my mom. And all of those feelings, I just let it out to everybody. My sister, brother, mom. And then I started to go to therapy. And I started to break down all of those emotions that I've been suppressing. So, that's what helped me through a lot, was talking about it. I would say was the most effective thing for me, was talking about it with my mom and my siblings. Like, it was something that I always wanted to share, and I never got to say it. So, and then following up with therapy, a lot of individual therapy. I did group therapy, so I was doing a lot of work on myself. So I can be a better version of this person I knew I could be that I had lost for all those years. And that way I can be a better version for my sister who needed me. So therapy and talking, and not keeping it inside you, but just letting it out all on the table and allowing to tell people what happened to me was the best form of therapy.
And again, I commend you for coming to share your story with us today. And when I think back on my own experience, because I was so young, I didn't even realize the things that were happening to me weren't right. But as I became older, I always reverted back to that little girl. So therapy is very, very important when dealing with traumatic situations. And as you stated, just talk about it, just get it out, because as long as you hold it in, it's like the devil, the enemy, has control over your mind, over your thought processes. He can manipulate you to make you feel like you were wrong. It's something that you did to provoke that person to do those things to you. But the more you talk about it, the more you become empowered to say, you know what? I didn't do anything wrong. This person took advantage of me. So again, I thank you so much for coming to share. And I just hope that if anyone is listening out there, you'll feel inspired also to tell your story to someone, to get it out. If you can't physically speak it, and tell someone, write it down, journal, seek therapy, seek counseling. If you're a person that prays, just figure out a way to let it out so that you can begin the healing process. Do you think that your life has forever been impacted by the things that happened to you?
Absolutely. Even when it comes to, I'm 26, and the biggest thing that has been on my mind recently is kids. Do I want to have kids? And I'm not sure about that right now. And I think the thought of having kids and the thought of somebody hurting them and thought of all of that is just I don't know if I want to have kids because of what happened to me. But that has definitely impacted how I view relationships. And at one point it impacted social, sex life, physical touching, so it impacted a lot. But now I'm in a space where I'm not going to allow that to write my story. I want to have all of that and not have that attached to the things that I know I want in my life. So all of those things that it once impacted, I am learning ways to not allow that to attach and write my own story for that.
Amen. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. That's very, very, very courageous. You're a very strong young woman. And you are not those things. You do deserve to write your own story. Do you have any advice to offer to young women that may be experiencing a similar situation?
Yes. Tell someone. Go to authorities. Tell someone that you can trust. It is important that, one, what's happening to you is not your fault. And for the longest, I took fault for what happened to me. Know that it is not your fault. Stop asking yourself, why me? I thought that for the longest. Tell someone that you trust. If you don't have anyone that you trust, then go tell authorities so that person gets locked away, because these people should be, a lot of people get away with stuff like that, and they need to be put away for those type of things. So tell someone, and if that has happened to you previously and you are finding it hard to deal with day-to-day life, is that seek some therapy. Talk about it. I know it is hard to talk about it, but the more you sit with it and talk about it and how uncomfortable that feels, you will learn to feel more comfortable with those uncomfortable feelings. So talk about it more. If you can afford it, go to therapy. But do not allow yourself to suppress all of those emotions like me that once blew up. Talk about it more, therapy, and if you're in a situation, tell somebody that you trust or go to authorities.
Yeah, when you say like an explosion of feelings and emotions, I understand, because it goes from hurt, disappointment, rage, anger. It's like just every feeling, every human emotion that we experience. It's like you're feeling all of it at the same time.
Absolutely.
And you definitely do have to filter through those feelings, and you have to feel it all. I remember when Maykalia was young, the co-host of this podcast, and she used to always just be so angry. And I would say, "What's wrong with you?" Nothing, nothing, nothing. And I said, you have to acknowledge how you're feeling. So, because once you speak it out of your mouth, that means you accept this is what I'm feeling. And then we can work with it, you know. So I definitely agree.
You gotta start running away from those emotions. The best thing is to sit with it, even though it's uncomfortable.
That's right. What do you hope to accomplish by telling your story on a public platform?
To inspire others. Right now, I am working on a TikTok page called Echoing Journey that I hope to eventually turn into a podcast. And that name comes from telling my story and hoping that echoes throughout every woman and man that has ever gone through something similar. That they take what I have learned so far and apply it to their lives. I forgot the question. What was the question?
What do you hope to accomplish by telling your story?
Yes, by inspiring other young women, young men, older, young, whatever it is, to inspire that it does get better. It gets better. I went from a place where I did not think that I could ever be where I am today. That it gets better. You don't have to become it. You can rewrite it. You can be all those things you thought you could be. You can heal that little girl or that little boy within you. So I'm hoping that my story just inspires others to sit with it, go to therapy, and learn from all my mistakes that I made. That made my healing journey a lot complicated than it needed to be, but that's my story.
Well, you have to give yourself some grace. In those moments, you thought that you were making the best decision. You know, and that's something that I'm learning as a 46-year-old woman, to give myself grace. I had a conversation on the road with my children the other day, and actually everyone in the car was crying. And I have 4 children. We all were crying, just speaking about things from the past, and you know, and they were feeling some type of way about things that had transpired. And I told them, I said, you know, when I was making those decisions, at that moment in time, I felt like I was making the best decision. But as you grow older, as you experience more, you reach a certain level of maturity. You know, I was very, very young trying to tackle taking care of 4 children. And it's rough. So now I'll speak to Sherlonda. This is again my sister. I actually remember speaking to you when you found out, and it was so devastating. The night you called me, and she was so broken. I couldn't hardly understand what she was saying. And once I kind of made sense of it, I was just completely dumbfounded. I remember the day that she met your dad, and I was telling her, "Girl, don't go to that car." My mom raised me to be very, very paranoid, and I said, "That man is a stranger. Don't go to that car." Um, and it's just throughout their relationship, he just never liked me. And he was like, "I don't want her around." And I would tell him I ain't going nowhere. I'll be there when he leaves. I'm not going anywhere. So I just love you. Thank you so much for dealing with me for 30 plus years. um, how did you feel when you found out what was going on?
Bear with me.
How did you feel when you found out what was going on?
Shocked. Unbelievable. I believe there's something like that happening in my life. You
Right.
know, you heard stories about this happening to other people. You know, just when it hit home, hit different. I was very, very hurt.
Yeah, it's true. It's like you could watch news. The stories on the news are so completely devastating, but you hear it, you see it, and you kind of dismiss it. But as you stated, when it happens in your own house, um, it is a big shock. Did you suspect anything before you knew for sure what was going on?
You know? And like my daughter stated, you know what I'm saying, it home that we was, you know what I'm saying, he provided. You know, I didn't see that. I just thought he was just a working man. He loved his kids. He provided for his family. So I didn't never get no kind of hints from that.
Right.
Because just see him go out there working, come home, be with his family. That was a routine, so I did not see it at all.
And how did you find out what was going on?
The morning that she left, me and my other daughter, her name is Janae, we was calling around. We called the jail and they said that she was down. So we went to the jailhouse.
And how has this affected your life?
You know, just number one is just trust. You can't trust nobody. And my relationship that I had with my kids, you know, it was rocky at first and everything. But now that it's gotten better between me and my girls and my kids. You know, we have a different relationship. We more open. We tell each other how we feel. We don't close out how we was before. So, you know, we speaking. We don't hold nothing against nobody. We, you know, talk how we feel.
Right. That's good.
It took a lot to get to
Yeah.
where she's talking about.
It wasn't easy. You know, it's just guilt. You know what I'm saying? For a mother.
Right.
Not to see the signs. And even when you ask questions, you know, how you feel, why you doing this to yourself, it wasn't no, they didn't tell me, you know what I'm saying? They were just like, I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? I should have said more. Why, you know what I'm saying? Why you cutting yourself up? Why you doing this to yourself? I should have put more force than just saying something and then not say nothing else.
Well, I would say to you too that you have to give yourself some grace. I know as a parent, we do so much. As a mother, we really work hard to try to shelter our children and protect them. And it's very devastating to know that we are protecting our children from the world when the predators are inside of our house. You know, it's something else. I had experienced something very similar. And again, I was dumbfounded. So I just give yourself some grace. Were there any specific warning signs?
I mean, okay, like going there, closing the door. I'm just thinking they have a moment talking.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't suspect that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or like slapping on our booty did all us like that. You know what I'm saying? I just, you know what I'm saying? But I really didn't.
Like, what about signs within us?
I mean, like one sign I was talking about the cutting. When I did spoke up and I seen it, I didn't get no, you know what I'm saying? I'm okay. I should have just pushed more harder with it, asking more questions. Maybe it would have came out, you know. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that.
Yeah, and I know sometimes when you're dealing with predators, they normalize a lot of unnormal or unusual behaviors. Like you said, slapping all of y'all. He had to slap everybody, but so it wouldn't look strange or unusual, you know. So
And I just want to say, you know, I didn't see the sign. I didn't see the sign because how he had me to. It just like he was very controlling of everything. You know, like very controlling. It's like it got to the point so bad. It just like I blanked out. I don't even know who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like it was always arguing, you this and you that. You ain't gonna never be nothing. You ain't. You know, it was just all like this. So
right.
I used to read like my books. I'm not gonna lie. I read like in 1 week like 10 books. I used to fantasize take myself out how I'm living right now and put myself in this book.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I was deep in my book. So a lot of stuff, there was my safe haven, my books. So I was in my books. And I did like not just shut a lot of stuff out because I was a very depressed person in that relationship. And the only reason why I stayed because of my kids.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I knew they were going to have this. I knew they were going to have that. You know, and I knew they hated their daddy because I'm thinking because he being a father, he being controller of his kid, y'all can't, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I beat myself up till this day about that, you know. But I wish I would have seen the sign. I just wish I would have pushed more with asking them questions. You know what I'm saying? Like finding out something. Why are you doing this? You know what I'm saying? Just saying it once. That ain't nothing. But if I would have constantly did it, it would have came out. You know what I'm saying? I beat myself up for that.
Well, I would say to you, sis, that you have to probably seek some counseling for yourself as well. Because
no offense, therapy is not for everybody.
I think she needs to go to therapy.
No, my therapist come for my kids when around them.
Well, you can say therapy is not for everybody, but I think that in our African American community, there's a lot of stigma associated with the word therapy. But I think that we need therapy and we need to normalize having counseling, therapy, psychiatric help if you need medication. Because, and I'll just use myself as an example. All my life, my dad was in and out of trouble. From an early age, I think I remember my grandma saying like he was in a juvenile facility when he was 15, and he was born in 1954. So this is a long time ago. He in and out of trouble, in and out of trouble. Grow up, he's still in and out of prison, in and out of prison. And he was around maybe like 58 when he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I just can't even imagine if he had gotten the help that he needed at the age of 15, how much better his life would have been, the quality of life he would have been able to have. But everybody just tagged him, oh, he's just bad. He's just crazy as hell, and they continue to let him live in that, So I'm a very big advocate for therapy. Even if you have a problem with the quote unquote real therapist, get a preacher, minister, somebody that just not even to tell you anything, just to listen to what you have to say, because you have to unpack all of this baggage. I was in an abusive relationship. I understand. I woke up one day and couldn't even realize how I got there. Very, very controlling. He would time me and how long I spent at the grocery store. I was so depressed that I would actually go to the grocery store in the Kroger parking lot and sit in my car just to get a break. And when I came home, he would say, oh, you've been out screwing. Why would you marry me if you thought that was the type of woman that you were marrying? So I definitely understand abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. I have endured all of those. And you do tune out. You do. You take yourself to wherever place you need to go. Some people use drugs. Some people eat too much. Some, like you say, your therapist was reading. Whatever you have to do to escape, you do it. And I found myself in a place, and I really was like on the verge of taking his life. And that's what snapped me out of that situation, because literally looking at the hammer on the dresser, like when you hit him, you got to hit him hard. It's like I had an out of body experience. And I could see myself laying in the bed, and I'm reasoning in my mind, like, when you hit him with this hammer, you got to hit him hard, because if he get up, he gonna kill you. And in that instant, the Holy Spirit said, you got to get out, because if you kill him, who's gonna take care of your kids?
I had many thoughts. One point, I just felt like leaving. You know what I'm saying? Leaving my kids there with them, because I felt like he was going to take care of them. They would have this stuff. I couldn't provide for them, so why would they want to come with me? Just leave them there, just to get away from him. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm saying I wish I woulda, coulda. It's in the past now,
Right.
But at one point, I didn't even see the light. It's like every time I tried to reach that light, to get covered back up with darkness. Like when I tried to come out, when I tried to leave, taking everything from me, you know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna handle this money, this car, or nothing, you know what I'm saying? They like put a dampen in the person, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like the more you try to get out, the more he makes you feel like you ain't gonna do this without, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You take everything. When I did decide to leave, you take all the money out the banking account. You take the keys. You make sure that I won't, you know what I'm saying, like I'm going to fall back on him. So there was, you know what I'm saying, I want my kids to know that I did try to get out a couple of times over the relationship, but he made it so hard for me. Just drew me back in, you know what I'm saying? I'm just thinking, just wait till they turn 18. I could endure another year or two, and then I was going to leave no matter what. I just want to make sure they had the stuff in life that I could provide for them. But now, you know what I'm saying? As I stepped out of that light, I mean, I came, you know what I'm saying? I seen the light, you know what I'm saying? I see how strong I am, that I can do this. I didn't need him, you know what I'm saying? And that's what I showed them. I should have showed it to them then. I did, but not in the way that I should have. You know, that's why I go hard now. But they get, you know, not only for them, for me. I had to show myself, you is this strong person. You can do it. You can.
Right.
And that's what I've been doing. Just keep going. Despite what I feel, just go. Just keep going. Ain't no giving up now.
And it took me a long time to understand that part of my mother. You know, when I was going through in my age, you know, hate is a strong word, but I had strong feelings of dislike for my mother because I was upset that she didn't see the signs. I was upset that she did not push harder for those answers, and it took me to get older, and wiser, and to experience life, that I just saw her as my mother. I didn't see her for Sherlonda, what she was going through actually. And as I've grown older, I think empathy is a strong word, and I think understanding goes very deep for somebody. And now I'm able to see her for who she is. She was someone that also grew up with a mother that did her best with what she had.
Right.
And she just applied it to us. And what she was going through with my father, I can see how that tuned out, where she was just in fight or flight mode, that she couldn't see what was happening. And I give her so much grace now, because now I'm able to understand what that means, would have felt like for her during that time. And I do think she should give herself a little bit more grace, because I think she did the best with what she could.
Right. And when we think about how we were brought up, and a lot of times people will say it's a generational curse. Whatever you witness growing up, that's your normal, unless you are introduced or have the opportunity to see something different. And most times we don't have the opportunity to see anything different. I am so grateful to God, because although I grew up in a 2-bedroom shack in Scottsdale, Georgia, He did allow me to see something different. I went to a private school. I had classmates that lived in mansions. You know, I was able to travel, and that gave me the sense to know that it's more. This life is bigger than Scottsdale, Georgia. But if that's all you see, then that's all you know, and like, to your point, you just do the best you can with what you're given. I have, even in my adult life, I've been evicted. My children, my brother, my sister, we had to stay with several family members. I've been in a place where was making $5 an hour. I've been in a place where I was making $20 an hour. You know, last year, at the beginning of 2023, the Holy Spirit laid it on my heart. There's a scripture, I believe it's in Corinthians, and I'm just going to paraphrase, but Paul is saying, whether I'm hungry or whether I'm fed, whether I'm clothed or whether I'm naked, I have learned how to be content. And at like January, the Holy Spirit gave me that scripture, and I rehearsed it, I recited it all 2023. And I truly believe that I'm in a place where I've learned to be content, because material things don't mean anything. It's the memories, it's the laughter, it's the love, it's the joy, the peace. You know, I remember we were living in Clarkston. We didn't have any furniture. we used to sit in the floor and just sit in the floor and talk, Indian style, talking, laughing, cracking up with each other, you know. So we need to learn that it's not about the material things, but I know as a parent and a mother, that's all you're thinking about is how to provide for your kids. So I'm not judging you at all. I my life probably could have been the same way. I just didn't meet anybody that was willing to provide, and I had to get out there and get it. So it's no judgment. I definitely understand, and if my shoes were on your foot, I probably would have made the same decisions. But I'm happy that we were able to talk through it. I really think you should consider getting some counseling, just to help you. Just, not even this situation, but just to help you deal with you, because you still are beating yourself up. You said it yourself. I still beat myself up to this day. You will have to heal from this situation so that you can move forward.
I beat myself up, but they're gonna make me strong. And just my opinion.
That logic
You
is not
entitled
gonna
to your
Well,
opinion.
it been working so far. So
It hasn't.
One day.
One
Therapy,
day,
you can't knock it till you try it.
right?
You will learn a lot of things about yourself.
Had me crying. I don't want to talk to people
You
who have
have
me
to-
crying like
you-
this. So
Girl, you talking about crying? Girl, I cry just about every day, at least once a day. You have to get those feelings out, sis. I'm just telling you. That's real talk. What advice do you have for other mothers and parents that may be going through something similar?
If you see something, keep talking until you get the answer. Keep talking until you bring it out of the person. You know what I'm saying? Just don't say something and then just don't say nothing else. You know what I'm saying? Just keep asking questions until you get, just keep asking questions. Keep asking questions.
Yeah, I understand. And I raised my kids to tell, like I taught them whole life. And I thought that I had established a certain pattern that they could come to me and talk to me about anything, until I realized that they didn't feel comfortable talking to me. So I definitely understand. Again, I'm so happy that you guys came to talk about this situation. I know there's many, many people that are men and women, because there are more men being trafficked in the sex ring than women. So it's definitely important to talk about it. Find someone you can confide in, seek help, get therapy, go to the authorities. Whatever you can do, do it. Because the more you do, the more you'll feel empowered. And the more that you're empowered, the more you can, as Tayanna said, rewrite it, create your own narrative. You don't have to live in that depression or that explosion of feelings. You can find joy, you can find peace, you can find happiness. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed listening to this video, well, not enjoyed, but if you found something interesting or something that you could relate to in this video, please share it with someone, drop your comments below. Tayanna, could you give us your TikTok again?
So my TikTok is echoing.journey, and you'll be seeing a lot more as I talk about my experience and the things that I went through, and the path that I took to get to where I am today. So check me out.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. This has been Figuring It Out with you. So we are figuring it out with each other as we continue to figure it out with you. Thank you guys. See you next time. Bye.